Welcome to another segment of Lady Mogul Talk. Today we have the fabulous Janea Jamison, and I just want to share a little bit about her amazing bio. She is a Louisiana native and hosts a weekly podcast called Her Story, L.L.C, and she creates opportunities for critical dialogue and action for Black women who have defied obstacles and turned them into success. She is a longtime advocate for race and gender justice, and her justice lens focuses on centering around women and girls in policy, organizing, and advocacy to develop a roadmap for equity. And she is just the busy mogul, and she leads all programming strategies for the Power Coalition, where her work includes a statewide growth of the Power Coalition and implementing core programming, including a leadership program and voting rights work and so much more. So we'll definitely have to dig into this conversation about everything that she does with the Power Coalition. So thank you so much for just being a part of Lady Mogul Talk.
Yes, I mean, the pleasure is all mine. I love supporting Black women, women of color, sharing stories, all of those great things. So super excited to join and be a part of this, and also to give more details about the HBCU experience, the Southern University System Edition, my alma mater. So thank you for having me.
Yes, Team HBCU in the building, virtually. Now, you are ironically the second person from Louisiana I've interviewed in maybe the past 3 weeks. So I think Louisiana is rolling deep, and I have roots to Louisiana, so shout out. Now, I want to start off the conversation just talking about how Louisiana impacted you growing up, if any way, to how you are today.
Definitely. So I came from a small rural country town, Napoleonville, Louisiana. I always like to share that because often when folks think of Louisiana, they only think of New Orleans. I'm currently in New Orleans now, but the population of Louisiana and the makeup of Louisiana within itself is a lot of rural communities along the bayou. So I always say I am a bayou baby along Bayou Lafourche by way of Napoleonville, Bertrandville, Thibodaux, all those great towns that you don't know now you do know because I'm saying it. But I will say that, growing up in a small rural town, it definitely shaped me into why I am so deeply rooted in racial justice and social justice and activism work, right? I went to a predominantly white Catholic school from preschool through 12th grade, but also being a part of that environment, it was very... it wasn't where I would see a lot of Black folks in positions of power and leadership or representation. And so that definitely led me to apply to HBCUs to get that experience outside of the church or outside my family members, because I did go to a predominantly white school. But when I did see certain things as it related to racial justice or injustice, it really made me want to think and broaden my horizons of how I could really utilize my voice, speak up for those who may be afraid to even speak or afraid to be ostracized in certain situations. And so all of those experiences definitely led me along the path to Southern University, led me along the path to racial justice work and just changing the infrastructure of the state that I love, Louisiana.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I remember my mom first told me when I was going to college, she said, you must choose an HBCU. And I was like, HBCU? And I was like, okay, I understand. I get it. And I'm sure you had that moment as you said you were applying. You wanted that experience of HBCU life. And speaking of that, let's just transition right there, because you actually have a book coming out about Southern University. And I want to just give a shout out to Dr. Ashley Little. We are partners with the HBCU Experience Movement, and we so value her partnership. And of course, that's how we are connected. So tell us about your Southern University experience. And I shared with someone else that I just love the fabulous dancing dolls, even though it's being a traitor to my own HBCU, but they're just fabulous. So. Don't tell us.
HBCU love. It's all right.
But tell us about your experience.
Yeah, so I always say this, and Dr. Little, Ashley, she loves it. I'm like, I am Southern University. Okay, like I absolutely love Southern University. My experience and my connection to Southern, it actually began at a very early age. So although again, yes, I went to a predominantly white school, but my mom is a Southernite. Majority of her family, they either are Southern University alum, and then my dad's family is Grambling State University, right? So traditionally in Deep South, there's always that family rivalry between Southern and Grambling. So at 3 years old, I was going to Bayou Classic, Southern University homecomings, having that experience around the band and the fabulous dancing dolls, as you mentioned. But outside of the experience around football games and classics, again, I didn't really have that connection to an institution, to professors, and all of those things. So Southern University, one, it taught me that in HBCU, there is so much diversity within our own people. I really hold it near and dear to my heart because I hate the false narrative that folks create that an HBCU isn't reality. It's very much so reality. And, we are hit with so much enough in the reality and throughout our adulthood and things that we may experience as adults. Why not experience that Black utopia for 4 years of your life, right? And the diversity in so many folks that are part of quote unquote Black culture, but we come from many different phases, many different areas of the world, many different areas of the country. And so just to have that overall experience is so powerful. For me at Southern University, I found my voice. I was Miss Freshman. And I went through that within my chapter. My chapter kind of focuses on breaking out of the box and, just doing things that you may not be used to. Not even necessarily trusting your gut, but just going out there and just not being afraid, just doing different things to get that experience. So I will always say that going to Southern University, it's in Scotlandville, right? People don't really understand the distinction. Scotlandville is a neighborhood within Baton Rouge. Scotlandville is a predominantly Black town. So when I went to Southern University, what I saw was a glorious, magnificent campus, beautiful. But outside of that campus, the infrastructure, the actual state of Louisiana may have lacked the leadership within that moment. So in that moment, I knew it was important to use my power of influence to actually advocate around the issues that may greatly impact our institution. So at that time, I was invested in registering students to vote. At that time, I was still invested in doing policy work. I worked at the mayor's office in Assumption Parish. At that time, I also used the power of that influence to organize different rallies and things like that at the Capitol to get students intrigued and involved around, the importance of being invested in civic engagement and what that really means to your institution. So I will always say that, again, Southern University helped me connect the dots and led me into the person that I am today as it relates to my career, as it relates to my passion, and as it relates to my advocacy.
And we are very excited to hear your chapter in the HBCU experience, the Southern University system, which will be released this June. Oh my goodness, it's almost here. Well, it is here, but
May 3rd, so it's available now currently.
Oh wow.
Yes.
Well, see, I stand corrected. It is available now. You can go on Amazon and purchase that. And I just wanted to highlight what you said about your experience about it being a Black utopia. And I think that's what I miss so much about my HBCU experience. It's just Black excellence all around. And as you said, we are diverse. We're not the same. We come from different backgrounds, different means. And that's what I just loved about it, just going down, at the promenade on Clark Atlanta campus, just waving to my people.
Right. Definitely.
Now, I want to talk about your podcast that you have as well. Your podcast, Her Story, which is such an amazing platform. Can you share why it was important to start this platform? And you mentioned earlier about you found your voice at Southern, and I'm sure that had something to do with this.
Yeah, so Her Story is actually an acronym for heroic, empowering, and resilient. And so what I do is I focus on specifically women of color and how they turn their adversities into triumph. Like, I think that we live into a reality where we see on social media, you see the glitz and the glam and the come up, right? But we don't necessarily share those backstories. And there is power and glory within our story. There can be power within the struggle, right? Because in that way, you actually can form that sense of relatability ability. If someone else can do it that may have went through the same hurdles or hardships as you also can do it. And I think it is also important that we create different platforms where we're sharing resources. So all of the women that are on her story, they're entrepreneurs, they're mompreneurs, they are community leaders. They are all of these great things in their own right. And it gives them the opportunity to highlight and to broadcast not only where they came from, right, but where they are now, and the power and the glory, into where they can stand strong now. And as it relates to my personal connection to her story, I will always say that, as an adolescent, it was difficult for me when I saw different images. I saw Europeanized images of beauty and all of those things. And I didn't always love myself. I didn't always accept myself. And it was my mother and her strong words of affirmation that gave me the encouragement to keep going. It also was the teachers at my school that paid close attention to a pattern of behavior. I am a survivor. I overcame anorexia. And so I share all of these things with individuals and for people that, yes, to the eye, I may always appear as this strong, brilliant, bold woman, which I am, because I tell myself these things and I know who I am through God, through Christ, and because I can stand strong in saying that, but I always wasn't that individual. So I think it's important, one, that we share and collect our stories to empower and motivate each other, and two, that we can form a network of like-minded women and sharing different resources so that we can grow and build together. So that's the overall focus of her story.
And I love that. I wholeheartedly agree with everything that you said. I'm giving silent snaps over here because it is so true that when you share your stories, you never know who it may touch, because we sometimes just go through our own personal battles. I used to hide certain things about myself because I thought, oh my gosh, are they going to judge me or think that I can't do certain things because of that? But once we share our stories, I feel like we just become stronger, and then you just realize you're really not as alone as you thought you were.
Exactly. Yes.
Now, I want to talk about your brand, Kloset Fitness, and I think that's just so amazing. Did you ever think that you would be a designer or have this type of brand?
No. So the brand Kloset Fitness, it is interrelated to her story as it focuses on promoting, self-love and shapes and body images and all of those things. So I went again from a place where it was like I didn't really love it or accept myself in the shape that I was in or the skin that I was in, right? And so I would over exercise. I would starve myself because I wanted to look a certain way or have a certain image. But I looked at what was almost something that broke me, and I started looking at the overall holistic approach of being healthy and exercising and eating what's right. And so what helped me and motivated me to go to the gym was something simple, cute, designs, colors. I like bright colors and all of those good things. So I began promoting Kloset Fitness with a K because I am from a woman of Alpha Kappa Alpha, right? So I had to put the K on it. And so I started promoting Kloset Fitness, and then Kloset Fitness grew into her story because one way I knew that I was empowering women through working out, and I was like, I want to do something even broader in terms of making sure that women know that if they're going through a certain situation that they can overcome it. So Kloset Fitness grew into her story. So they are both my babies.
And I think that you highlighted so many great points. I think that the stigma around women's body and just being able to embrace who we are has changed. But do you still feel like that? Well, I still feel like we still have a little ways to go. What do you think that we can do to just continue the awareness of just making healthy choices, not only just physically but mentally, to make sure, like you said, the holistic approach is that we're aware of that holistic approach?
Well, I think it's important that we continue to share our stories, right, and collect those things, because, the power of the mind is definitely not a joke, and what we put into the universe and what we put into the atmosphere, it will either gravitate to us or we will actually think these things. Mm-hmm. So I always focus on making sure that we're amplifying the voices and the stories of women, but also that we focus on our affirmations, and that anything that we call into this world, into the universe, can actually come into fruition. education. So I often promote that as well, making sure that we have a positive mind. And a positive mind doesn't mean that it's all Cheerios and rainbows and smiles every day. When we are faced with certain things, we're able to overcome them. And we are faced with certain things, we find the use of therapy and utilizing counseling and all of these great things and measures, and that it isn't a stigma within the Black community, or isn't a stigma amongst Black women. I feel like as Black women, we are often the superheroes, and we're often the laborers and the strategists and the masterminds behind so much. And we think that you have to work. Yes, but it's so important that we center ourselves in self-care. Self-care is so important, because if you don't take that time for yourself, then you can't be your full self, right? You can't be your full productive self. If you can't be your full productive self, then who is going to be there to carry on the work? Because the work will always be there. So to fully answer your question, one, continue the collection of stories and capturing those stories, promoting the importance of mental health and making sure that we are going to therapy and utilizing counseling. And three, making sure that we are centering self-care. And self-care is anything that simply brings you peace. Self-care doesn't have be a full day massage and a facial and your nails and your hair done. It can be simply watching your favorite horror flick, because I love horror movies and that's what I love to
do. And you brought up some very good points, and everyone's talking about it, so I might as well bring it up, about Naomi Osaka. People have opinions about, is she really going through mental health? And other people are saying, her sister said that she's not going through anything, and I guess her sister later took that back. But you never know what someone is going through. You can't speak to someone's mental health journey. So it's so important that we take preventative measures before something becomes a problem. I learned the hard way, but thankfully it wasn't to a tragic extent. But it's so important that we, as you said, take care of ourselves. And sometimes a nap is self-care for me, or just walking my dog. So it doesn't have to be always these extravagant trips, as you said, and doing facials and everything like that. So it looks different for different people. And thank you so much for just being transparent and sharing with us.
No problem.
Now, earlier I mentioned about the Power Coalition, and I think this is just such an amazing initiative, and I'm going to let you have your moment and share everything that the Power Coalition does, because I didn't even touch on everything that you do.
So the Power Coalition was established in 2015. The founder and CEO is Ms. Ashley Shelton, and I'm the director of programs. So I focus on policy and advocacy. It's very important, again, that we center our Black women in power. We center our Black women in policy, because, again, the Black women are usually the leaders behind all, right? We are the givers of life. We are the promoters of so much that is within our community. But power building is not only just centering our women, but also our Black men and our Black boys. What it looks like is ensuring that folks of color throughout the entire state, throughout the country, are aware of what it means to utilize that power as it connects to voting rights and advocacy. So we do a lot of power mapping and listening sessions and educational seminars. We take these conversations and experiences from folks, and then we draft and create policies that will support our Black and brown communities. And there are many different initiatives. I lead She Leads, which is a community activist fellowship program where we not only provide women activists of color in Louisiana with monetary resources, but we also provide them with leadership development to leverage their work and connections to national voices and introduce them to a philanthropic community, and giving them all the tools so they can carry and grow their organization. So for the past 3 years, I've led election protection programs where we've monitored like over 600 polling locations throughout the state, and we've passed powerful legislation just based off of all of that. While many Deep South states are passing voter suppression bills, Louisiana, I was able to lead that policy where we have 18 days of extended early voting, and where we now can extend our time periods in the voting booth. So, it's a full circle moment, because just last last year, we actually filed a federal lawsuit to extend early voting, to create different measures for folks to actually cast their ballots by mail. And those same folks that we actually sued sat at the table with us to promote policy to extend early voting. So that, again, full circle moment in building power throughout the state, and what it really means and what it looks like to make sure that our people, that people of color, again, are using their voice and putting people in positions of power and connecting the dots, right? That every quality of life is controlled by an elected official, and ensuring that individuals actually know that. So, my activism work, it has led me in many doors. My voice has led me into many doors, but I never want to be the individual to use that voice to take up space. I always say that I'm amplifying the voices of others, but not speaking for them.
And that just really highlights the power of, as you've been saying throughout, it just resonates, the power of our voices. A lot of people think that, if I don't vote, it won't matter, or if I don't speak up, it won't matter. But we can, if we just pull together and be collective, we can make a difference. And that even just brings up on another question. What do you think is the biggest challenge in educating our community that we can? Is it, I don't know how you can change the perception without just, saying come to this or go vote or what, but what advice do you have for us to at least attempt to change the perception?
It's having real conversations with people. The way we're able to move is not because we just say, you need to go out and vote. Like, having real questions with them, like, what keeps you up at night? Mm-hmm. You're working 3 to 4 jobs. Is it because of the lack of economic opportunities? Is it because the state of Louisiana doesn't have a set minimum wage? Why is that so? Mm-hmm. It's because of people in position of power and leadership. When we think about healthcare and lack of access to healthcare, or when we look at how coronavirus disproportionately affected our communities, is that due to multiple food deserts within our urban and our Black areas? Why do you think that is so? So really having real conversations with them about the things that keep them up. And also, when they have different elected officials that are out there who are voting, this is what this individual stands for. And it's not just stopping at voting, right? You making sure that you are civically engaged, because we have to hold them accountable. It's all about accountability. So I always use a comparison that if you have this prestigious job, and then your supervisor doesn't come in and monitor you, or doesn't make sure that you are doing A, B, C, and D, you're going to do whatever you want to do, because that there is no way that you won't get it. There's no way that you wouldn't be held accountable if no one is there actually monitoring you or telling you what you can and can't do. So right when you go and cast your vote, you also have to hold that elected official accountable as well, and make sure that they're holding their word. And just as quickly as you can put them in office, you can also take them out. There are ways to actually do that as well. So it's all about connecting the dots. It's all about making sure that people are fully educated. And I think it's also about erasing that false narrative, because when you create different measures and when you're innovative in educating people actually come out and they vote. I will say that for a gubernatorial race we had in November of 2019, we talked to over 1.3 million people across the state, and 58% of people of color actually went out and voted. And when we looked at the runoff races in December, we had the presidential race in November, and you had the congressional runoffs in December. Proportionally, Black folks actually voted more than white folks. So you saw in 2019 that we were on par with our white counterparts, and you saw in 2020 that we actually voted more proportionally within the state of Louisiana. So there's power in having real conversations. And when you actually meet people where they are and show them the reality of what's around them and the reasons why things are a certain way around them, and the next steps, the accountability factors, and making sure that we are holding our peers and things responsible and accountable as well within our communities and neighborhoods, that's how you actually grow, and that's how you build. So there has been, positivity and momentum around elections and around different movements, and I think we will continue to do so.
And I wholeheartedly agree. My background is in political science, and just seeing the difference between the previous election before Joe Biden and Donald Trump, just seeing the difference between that, because that last election nearly took me out and then this one. But I can see the difference in like the mobilization of resources and education, and I have faith that it will continue to just to enhance as we progress in political advocacy and different things. So thank you for sharing that. That was a wealth of information, and I hope people really do take it to heart and understand the importance of their vote and their voice.
Definitely, yes.
Now, transitioning back to you, you've had so many highlights in your career and entrepreneurial journey so far, but to date, what would you say is the biggest highlight, and what can we expect from you next?
So my biggest highlight for me is, I think when I was highlighted in the New York Times, that was my biggest highlight. And again, that goes back to the protests, right? It almost made me very fearful. It made me scared to be in a platform that was so big and so large and nationally recognized. But my mom always told me, as long as you are telling the truth, never be afraid, never be ashamed to say anything, as long as there holds truth and facts and there's, passion behind whatever you are speaking for. And so for me, when I was able to, again, shed light on the things that impacted me within my childhood, growing up in the community that I grew in, shed light on my background, going to a predominantly white school and then going to an HBCU, I was able to capture all of those things. And so being able to share that on a national platform, but also as it related to what our country was going through at that moment, it was then I was highlighting the reason why I was protesting and the things that we are still trying to overcome as Black folks throughout the country. But I think that was definitely a great moment for me because it wasn't something that I wasn't expecting at all. I was simply just having a one-on-one conversation with someone about my experiences, and it was captured. And then to be quoted in such a large platform, and then connecting the dots to my background, to my upbringing, and to where I am right now in my career in activism, it definitely was a heartfelt moment. But I always go back to, it's not about me. Like, I hope that when I use my voice, that other folks are really realizing what's going on within the country, how far we have to go, but how much we've overcame at the same time as well. So that was one of the greatest highlights.
Definitely. And that would be my biggest one too today. So congratulations on that. That is absolutely wonderful. Now, I have truly enjoyed this conversation with you, Janea, and we want to make sure that we keep up with the other amazing things that are coming up with you. So feel free to plug in how we can keep up with you with your website or social media.
Definitely. So you can follow me on Instagram at Janea, JANEA _Claire, CLAIRE 13. That's my personal page. You'll then see the handle to her story, to the Power Coalition, and my own personal link where you can follow different things that I'm doing throughout the community and all those awesome things. And in closing, I do want to make a plug to the HBCU experience. Please go purchase the book. It is available now on Amazon.com, or you can go to the HBCU Experience Movement.com and purchase as well the Southern University System Edition.
I'm glad you did the plug, because if you didn't, I was definitely going to do that. So you made that just easier for me. But please be sure to support the HBCU Experience, the Southern University Edition. I cannot wait to learn more about the ladies' stories, and especially your chapter, to see what your experience was like. Thank you so much, Janea, for just sharing your experience, your story with us today. It was just such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And I hope that we can connect in the future as well. Again, I love what you're doing.
Thank you. And likewise. And I'm going to definitely follow you after the segment. Thank you so much for joining us for another segment of Lady Mogul Talk. And I will see you in the next episode.